Hello, everyone. It's my first intro. Welcome to Big Money Stylist Podcast. We're on episode 12, and today we are talking about protection.
So with protection, it's something that we've definitely addressed before, but I feel like it's a super, super important topic because we spend so much time building shit, and then sometimes it just goes sideways. So we will have Danielle joining us in just a little bit, but here we are with Coach Kenzie and Coach Val. Say hello, Kenz.
Hello, hello.
That was very deep. I don't know if it was me or you, but that's good too. So guys, let's just start talking about protection. So last week we were here and we were talking about profit. We go through one topic every single week. We start with power, then production, profit, and then protection. And so with protection itself, so talk to me guys, like what does protection mean to you, Kenzie?
Protection to me is just like, wow, I've never had to describe protection before.
Welcome to the podcast.
And we don't mean condoms, we mean in life. So let's address that part.
That too.
10 a.m. condom jokes. I like it.
Protection is more just like, man, I can't describe protection. I keep wanting to say just like barricading yourself and like protecting yourself, but that's not
protecting what you're building. It's like the last step after you found your power, you're producing stuff, you're seeing the profit, and then it's what you do to keep all of that and keep that momentum going so you can continue to keep growing.
Yeah, I'm just having like walls around me, vision in my head of like, I'm going to build a castle and then I'm going to build walls to protect it.
So basically what Kenz is saying is she's building a kingdom and then she's walling herself off to make sure no one gets in.
It's the opposite of what you should be doing in life, but I don't know why that vision just came to me.
I threw Kenzie the ball and she fucking dropped it. Way to go.
I really dropped it on that one.
But really, but protection is crazy important because really we spend so much time building everything. I mean, Danielle spent years building NBR and doing everything like that. And if you don't protect it, then at that point, what do you have left? So what happens if you go through and you don't protect something? Like, why is protection so important?
You can lose what you have. You can lose, like, protecting if you're not protecting yourself. You could lose your brand. You could lose your business. You have to protect it so that you can keep moving forward and growing. If you don't protect it, not only will it not sustain where it's at, it'll, like, go backwards and you'll end up with nothing. You have to protect what you've built.
Mackenzie?
And if you're not protecting things, you're just, like, giving it away to the public. And that's not to say like you're not being selfless, but you're just giving everything away that you've worked so hard for. You have to protect what you build or else it will just be taken away from you.
Yeah, and then really, if you don't spend time protecting everything that you've built, like Val said, you start back at square one. You start back with trying to find your power all over again, trying to produce anything, hopefully seeing some profit, just to not protect anything. And we see this happen all of the time with all of our students inside of Mastermind. We see it with artists inside of DKW and NBR. This is a topic that we see all the time, and it's protection. And something that I think that's very interesting within protection is we as women, I think we were apparently born to be so dainty and so kind and so sweet all the time, which is probably why I'm called a bitch like every other fucking day. Like that is just... And I know I keep making jokes about it, but it's true. At this point, it's just something that's so common that I don't even think twice about it.
You don't even flinch anymore.
I'm like, pick a different word, suckers, and that one has no effect anymore. I don't know what's worse. I do know what's worse than that, and we won't go there on a podcast. But even with that, I feel like as women and as artists and stylists, we're expected to be just super dainty and sweet and kind all the time, and it's that fucking caring is sharing constant mentality that doesn't really work. So why don't we talk about that protecting doesn't mean you're being a fucking bitch, because I feel like people don't know how to differentiate of you're protecting as opposed to you're just being an asshole.
Yeah, I feel like with protecting, you have like a clear outcome that you're trying to achieve. So if it's like, we're always protecting the NBR brand. So if people are trying to like sideswipe that or copy it, we're protecting it, not to be an asshole about anything, but the clear intention is to protect that Danielle came up with this. She takes pride in teaching other stylists, and there's all these things around it. So there's a definite clear intention and a clear outcome that you're doing when you're protecting something. You're not just like being stubborn and hard-minded. You're doing it for a positive like outcome. And I think that makes like a difference than like you're just being a bitch and you're like stuck in your ways and you're like saying you're protecting, but you're not really like growing from it. But I think if you're doing it with like a clear intent for a certain outcome, like we do with like NBR or our stylists with Inside Our Network, or I'm sure we're going to touch on it today with protecting ourselves from like our own self-sabotage. But there's a direct outcome that we're looking for. And
there's a very big difference with if you are lashing out. Like as stylists, we have every single client isn't going to go perfect. And if a client comes to you and says, hey, this isn't perfect, you know, I want to fix this, there's a very big difference of lashing out on the client and not being professional versus, hey, you know what, I didn't meet the standards that you have and that I have, I'm going to fix that. There's a very big difference between lashing out on a client and just being professional and fixing things. I don't think protecting yourself is the definition of that is just lashing out on people who come to you with course corrections.
Well, and with that, as artists, I feel we do put so much into the art, and whether it's something that you're painting or it's something like hair where you're dealing with the general public and someone else, you know, making someone else happy, we do take offense to it. And really, we shouldn't, because you're not going to make everybody happy 100% of the time. Like, that's kind of just the nature of the game. Someone is going to say something, or they're not going to like you, or they're going to get extensions and then fucking have regret, or their husband's going to be like, why'd you spend that money? And then they're going to fucking freak out and say, I want my money back. And all of a sudden it's on you. And they're like, well, I didn't like you. I didn't like how you talked to me. I didn't like how fast you worked. I didn't like that one highlight. You're like, I didn't even fucking highlight you. Literally didn't even do that. But shit like that happens all of the time. And I think as artists and stylists, we tend to get super defensive of it instead of being like, okay, let's just fix it. It's not a big deal and we'll move forward. And I feel like that also comes into protection of trying to protect yourself as well, but almost going about it the wrong way. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you guys have seen that inside of like artists and stylists or even like clients, situations like that?
Definitely. I think, like you said, when it's your art, it's so personal. So you are protective of it, but you want to make sure, like Kenzie was saying, that you want to differentiate from like being defensive or just protecting. So yes, we always come on this podcast and we're talking about protect your business, protect like everything that you've built and stuff, but not to the point where you're lashing out on people. That's definitely like not what we're teaching here. But I've seen it where you have to find that. Like if a client is unhappy, check yourself. Like, is it something that you did that could have been done differently? And then that's kind of where you need to find your line, like with protection is, did you cover the bases that you needed to? And do you need to like protect yourself? And if you have those systems in place, like a contract signed ahead of time, like all those kinds of things to protect your business, then you can kind of look at something differently. Like, okay, they weren't happy with this, so what could I have done differently? Or no, this person actually is kind of batshit crazy and they're not for me. So in order to protect my sanity, to protect the salon vibe, to protect this, like you're not a good fit for us. And that's protecting, you know? Absolutely.
And even that, something to touch on as well that you kind of have, like you mentioned for a second, is even the actual work itself. Part of, you know, protecting yourself and the brand is, are you actually putting in the clear intention to practice this shit every day? Are you practicing to get better, to protect yourself against things like that, to continue to be better? Because power practice is something that we preach every single day inside all of our networks. You can't just take one fucking class. You don't take one balayage class or one painting class or one anything and all of a sudden you're a fucking pro at it. Like, no, you're going to go through and you're going to learn a new art method and you're going to be super shitty at it for a while. And then the more you do it, you're going to be slightly less shitty and slightly less shitty. That's my favorite. Until one day you're just not shitty and then you're kind of good. And so that's really part of protecting it as well, is that's part of your business, is working to get better.
Yep.
And so, Kenzie, do you feel like that's something that you've experienced, is actually going through and having, not that you were shitty before, like your work's stunningly beautiful, but going through to like to protect you and your brand is making sure you're getting better?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like a lot of times I think people do think they take a class and they are an expert, but they say that it takes 10,000 hours of doing something consistently to be considered a pro or an expert at something. And so for me, I'm like, am I putting in 10,000 hours into my craft so that I can be an expert in the field? Because I see people all the time on Instagram. They take a class and then all of a sudden their Instagram bio says, "Oh, balayage expert, Instagram expert, extension expert," and that's not how it works at all. You have to put in that 10,000 hours before you're considered an expert at something. But I do think you should be humble enough as an artist to take constructive criticism, whether that's from clients, coworkers, whatever it is. There's a clear difference between constructive criticism and someone bashing you. If someone's bashing you, protect yourself, but be humble enough to listen to course corrections and grow from there. I think there's a huge, clear definition between the two of those.
Oh, definitely. So with protection, there are definitely different aspects and different ways that you can protect. one of the biggest things that we have been protecting is obviously from the outside. It's something that we see with NBR, we see it with DKW, we see it with BMS, and we see it with Wake Up Warrior as well. People have tried to fucking jack Wake Up Warrior all the fucking time. Like, this isn't something new that anyone's dealing with. It's just how it is. And obviously, I'm sure if you've been listening that you guys have heard, DKW is in NBR. They're currently going through a lawsuit with a salon called Habit inside of Arizona. It's not something that we're shy about anymore, but Danielle one day decided, fuck this shit, and she took a stand. And she wrote a blog post just saying, look, you guys keep asking about Habit. We are not in collaboration together. We are not doing anything together. Here's the truth of it. I trained her, and she fucking stole that shit. And that was the first thing like I've ever seen Danielle really like step up and say, fuck this, and start protecting her own brand. And then everyone else rose to the occasion, of course, because it was amazing. But here's the deal. It's not just about, it is about protection, but you have to protect from the outside. So Val, talk to us about protecting from the outside in instances that you've seen with NBR or with NBR and DKW of making sure we keep what we've made and continue to grow it without that outside like chaos and noise.
Meaning...
So
like another Habit example, I'm like, everyone's always copying Danielle's shit.
It sounds like a joke, but
should
it's
I pull out my long list of everyone where like, hey, that's NBR, but you're calling it something different. Good for you. Indie extensions.
But indie.
Oh wow! She just went there.
What? I haven't heard about indie, so let's talk about that for a second. Who the fuck? What is that? Who are they? You brought it up. Now it's coming up.
Remember when we did the podcast about the one girl who like was mad that she wasn't certified? Well, now she created her own method called Indie Extensions.
It's a fascinating
But
thought.
still NBR.
So we're going to address that fucking shit for a second. In case you did not listen to one of our podcasts, this was a few times ago. There was a girl. It might have even been our last like protection one. I mean, it was a minute ago or a few weeks.
We always get spicy on protection.
Because we'll fucking throw down for BMS. We'll throw down for NBR, throw down for DKW, and every single person on our team and all of our artists inside our network. Like, we didn't get to where we are. We're being like, by being super passive and being like, you're right. If you want NBR, you can take it and call it something else. So here's what happened. Haley Towery Snow, I know it's her full fucking name. I don't know what she has on Instagram because she has since then blocked us like we don't know. But she went through and was super upset that she was not on the NBR certified list because she took one online class like 5 fucking years ago and has not invested not shit since then to continue her education.
Also, clarifying there, fun update. She never even took the class. Her mom took the class. She never paid for jack shit.
Are you fucking kidding me?
And she didn't even have a cosmetology license when she first started doing NBR.
You're fucking telling me right now you went and
just lay it all out.
A fucking hissy fit on Instagram over a class you didn't fucking pay for, that you weren't supposed to be looking at, you weren't even supposed to be fucking doing, and that's where you threw an aneurysm over? You lying fucking bitch! Are you kidding me? You went and tried to throw Danielle and everyone else under the fucking bus, and you weren't even supposed to be there. So for future reference, your mom, to get those fucking online videos, signed a contract that she also broke by showing it to you. So congrats. Clearly, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So that's a nice one, too. So here's what happened. Haley wrote this whole big fucking thing on Instagram about boo fucking who, that Danielle's such a fucking bitch and we're the worst because we wouldn't put her on a... Yeah, we're a cult. Because we wouldn't put her on a certified list that I'm now hearing she didn't even fucking pay for, wasn't even licensed to do hair, and we fucking called her out on it. We're like, this is bullshit. Invest in yourself. There's no fucking way you took one class... Apparently no one fucking took the class now. You took one class 5 years ago and you're a fucking expert in this and you should even be doing it. So she was upset and super butthurt over getting something that she was not only not promised, something she clearly didn't even fucking pay for. So here's what happened after that. She wasn't a happy camper. She blocked all of us on Instagram, and now all of a sudden she's created a new method called Indie Extensions. Let's get something fucking clear right here and right now. If you think for a second we don't know what you're doing, you're fucking crazy. And if you think that you're gonna get away with stealing from Danielle because you have a stick up your fucking ass and you're so upset because you were a liar and you stole something to begin with, congrats to you and your mom when you weren't even fucking doing hair, you're insane. You should be ashamed of yourself of what you're doing because you know. And I'm gonna hear fucking lashback over this, and let me tell you something now. If you're listening to this or you're watching this and you know her first, I don't fucking care. And if you're gonna message me and tell me that I'm a fucking bitch and I'm mean and I should be ashamed of myself, save your fucking time because I don't care. At the end of the day, she stole something, Habit stole something, Chrissy stole something, and they're claiming it for themselves. And you want us to what? Sit around here and pretend like that's fine? We've been hustling and fucking bleeding for this shit for years, and you're gonna come in and take it, and you think we should what? Sit back and let it happen? You're fucking crazy if you think that's ever going to happen. And now you wonder why we sit here and we talk about protection and we get so fired up and amped up over the fact of we have to continue doing this. And you know what? You're going to think that we're fucking bitches, especially me. Oh, if I don't get at least a few Instagram or posts or fucking DMs or emails about this, I will be shocked because I heard it last time. One of her little friends was like, I watch everything you guys do and I follow all of you and I don't know why anybody would. I'm like, you fucking dick. Like, you're doing it. Thank you for following. Feel free to shut this off. If you don't like it, you can go. That's what it comes down to.
I feel like Garrett is here, and I'm very happy. I feel like Garrett is coming through.
Baby G.
I was called Baby Garrett last week, and I'm like, I'm actually very flattered by that. Thank you. But that's what it comes down to. We aren't here to let us be railroaded, and you shouldn't be either.
And that's the difference, like what we're doing. Like I think sometimes people hear the podcast, and because of like the fire and the feelings that come behind it, they're like, oh God, they're so mean and they're so cruel. But it's like, no, actually what's mean and cruel is that someone fucking stole something, and we're standing up and saying, that's not fucking cool. You actually stole something from someone who worked extremely hard, has invested so much time, money, effort. Like our lives are all around NBR, BMS, all of that. And you came and you stole that, and because we're addressing it, we're bitches? We're fucked up? Like, no.
How does that even work?
So that's what I mean when I was saying earlier, like there's a clear intention. We're standing up and saying like, this is our lives. This is like Danielle's creativity, her process, and we have all taken it on for it to be like our full-time job with doing clients, teaching other stylists. And what comes from that is like other stylists getting all this like freedom, all the other stuff that we touch on the podcast. And you're messing with that because you don't have the own creativity to come up with your own stuff. So no, you're not going to sit here and call us fucking bitches because our intent is to just say like, hey, not cool. It's our fucking thing. Don't fucking steal it. That there's nothing. The intent in that is to protect what we have. It's not us being bullies on a podcast or being rude or any of that. It's just it's not fucking cool and it's not right, and you're not going to do it. We're not standing for it anymore.
There's such a huge problem in our industry where that's acceptable. Mm-hmm. And I think it's humorous that because we're taking a stand and we actually call people out for stealing things, that we become the bitches. It's so funny to me that people think I had a girl inside Mastermind this week who was frustrated because she's coming to take the class, she's invested in herself, and her boss is expecting her to come home and teach the entire salon the method. And I said, that's really funny, and I'm really proud of you because she stuck up for herself. But what's funny is her boss is this bigwig on Instagram. It's doing great on Instagram, which is another fun topic. But it's funny to me that people think it's okay to just ask for that. Like, why are you not willing as an artist to invest in yourself? Why are you being a cheap ass and asking other people to teach you a method that you did not pay a dime to do? It's so sad that our industry has accepted this for so long, and that we have to be the ones to finally make a stand and all of a sudden we're the bad guys. Everyone as an artist, you should protect yourself. You should protect your brand. And that's all we're doing here. We're not here to lash out and fight everyone. If you steal something, we are going to stand up for that. But that's not what we're doing here. We're here to change the industry.
And something that I think is interesting because, like I said, someone is going to be triggered by everything that I just said. If you're sitting there and you're super triggered about everything I said and you're so upset, maybe what you need to ask yourself is, what are you doing inside of your life that has you triggered like this today? Because if you're going through and you're stealing shit and you're one of the thieves that we see every fucking day, that's on you. That's not on us. So don't get pissed at us when we don't roll over and let you get away with it, because it's not going to happen. We put too much time, effort, creativity. It's been literal blood, sweat, and tears for Danielle for what, 6-7 fucking years now just to create NBR, and you think it's cool to just fucking take it. It's never going to happen. Danielle.
I am so pumped. I'm like, sorry I'm late. Sounds like a good show so far.
Very
So
fun.
thanks for having me.
Welcome. Today's topic is protection. And
It's my favorite.
we are
We've been having a good time.
we're getting spicy
See,
on
I was
this
going to say, these are always the spicy ones, so I'm excited.
because we have 4 people in this room, and 5 if Garrett were here, that are willing to fucking throw down for anything and everything we've created.
Well, yeah, that's how it should be.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, it's not. So right now we are discussing how that Haley girl, who apparently that we put on blast a couple episodes ago, and she was just the one who messaged you about 5 years ago. She took that one fucking class.
I remember.
Yeah. Well,
Is this still going?
apparently now she's doing something called indie extensions. I'm like, you fucking thieving bitch. Like, we know.
Indie?
Yeah.
She started a line called Indie.
She created
She
her own
didn't
extension method.
Created. We're going to use that term very loosely. So
That's
I
okay. We just give her info to Daniel. We'll take care of it.
Yeah. So I just wanted to be very clear that although she blocked us from Instagram and was super fucking butthurt and had her little friends messaging me telling me what a fucking bitch I am, I couldn't care less. You got a fucking problem? Come bring it to me and I'll happily handle it and talk to you about it. It's no issue.
Yeah, it's so much drama. I'm kind of over her. I'm like, whatever. Literally, I get to this place where I'm like super triggered and I'm like, bah. And it's like all the trolls out there on social media, and you can't let like the one nagging troll like affect like what you're doing and how you operate. You know what I mean? So it's hard, and there's this fine line of like, hey, they're copying your shit, and if they are, and for so long, like I would just kind of ignore it when people had their Sally's Beaded Rose or whatever it was, you know, and I was just like, whatever. And then it gets to the point when so many people are investing in you that it's, oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, you were just
over. It gets to this point where so many people are investing in Natural Beaded Rose that I can't, it's only fair to kind of protect what I built. And I think that that's always the topic we come back to on protection is like, if you created something and it devalues it if you don't protect it. So as much as it like emotionally triggers me, I've gotten to the point too where, like you said, I built the business, I built MBR, and there's so many people that I care about that are in the program. It's for like the team, it's for the tribe as well. You know what I mean? And I think that they respect that too, and they like when we go to bat for them, and we like that. They like that we're like, hey, like we will knock out the competition. Like we're not just looking to say, oh, we're gonna do it different or better. We're gonna take them out. Like if you copy me, I will take you out. Like, and I got to this place where I'm like, it's not that emotional for me. Like I literally like something's flipped inside me, and I was like, this needs to be done. Like it needs to be done. Like MBR will be the only beaded bro method that when people hear about, they're like, oh, cool, they know what to expect. Because we have such a high standard for our education, for our team, for our stylists, for our tribe, and everybody in there. So it's as much as I want to be bugged, I'm like, you won't be able to compete at the level that I know that I'm willing to take this to. And I think it's important to protect the tribe because we all work so hard to create a better experience, a better system. And you can't compare us to people who are a different program, a different system, a different customer service even. Like we touch base on everything with our students. So it's not just like, hey, like beat it in a row, there you go. Like we're raising the bar on all levels of our industry, I feel like. If anything happens even with a client, I'm like, how can we make this better? How can we improve? We're very much about the customer service. It's like Suave and Kerastase. They're not even in the same universe. So it's kind of like I'm bugged, but I'm like, it's cool. Like you be Suave. Good for you. You be Suave. I'm not going to be Suave. I have no desire to be Suave. I'm going to be Kerastase. And when you put it like that, it's like, it is what it is. Best of luck with India extensions, whatever you are. So anyway, moving on.
And so with that, because we were talking about protecting, obviously having to protect from the outside and shit that happens on the outside. But another way that we also have to protect constantly is from the inside, whether that be artists inside of the salon, whether that be artists inside of our network. Sometimes shit goes sideways. So Val, I'm going to jump to you. Talk to us about where you've seen protection where you've had to protect from the inside. So you've had to protect because you're the CEO of DKW Styling.
Thank you. I love the title.
She's like, oh, I'm going to take a little bow. I appreciate it.
I'm like, boss, can I take on this client?
She's like, if you could write it to me in an email, please, that'd be great. But where we've had to protect with receptionists that have come in, stylists that have come in, even assistants that have come in, how have you seen of protecting from the inside?
I'm going to need more clarification.
Okay, so I'll give an example. We'll start with BMS.
Okay.
Inside of BMS, we've been very clear that the program, not for everybody. It's just as simple as that. We require, there is hustle, there is grind, there's a lot of commitment going forward because it's not an easy program. When you're literally changing an entire industry and changing the way it's been done for decades, it's not easy. Recently, we had 2 instances where Kenzie and I actually decided to drop 2 students from the program itself.
Just this weekend, Sunday.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Sunday, Kenzie and I had a very interesting conversation with a student. We'll leave. No, it's fine. Her name's Debbie. So we had a talk with Debbie, and
No, it's fine.
it's
Sorry, Debbie.
The name is so common.
We
Whatever.
still love you.
Yeah. No, I have nothing. Let me start off with I have nothing against her. It's totally fine. At the end of the day, BMS and Mastermind, not for her. That's what it came down to. But we had a talk with Debbie. We spent probably 40 minutes on the phone talking to her. And
If that's not customer service, I don't know what is.
oh my God, it was 40 minutes. This was literally Sunday morning, Sunday morning, 40 minutes on the phone. And everything we would say to her, because she told us all the problems she was having. And we said, okay, well, what if you did this? She's like, can't do that. We're like, why not? She's like, because of this. We're like, all right, well, what if you looked at it this way and tried this? She's like, can't do that. Every single thing we fucking said to her for 40 minutes, she came back with, nope, can't do it. Nope, can't do it. Nope, can't do it. Yep.
Yeah.
So, Mackenzie, what did we end up doing?
Realistically, at the end of the conversation, we just said, look, we can't save you from yourself, because we have been sitting on the phone with you and trying to guide you through, this is a possible option for you. This is a possible option for you. But because she had been so guarded and walled up by her own way of thinking, she wasn't even open to those options. So we can't save anyone. And at the end of the day, we couldn't save Debbie from Debbie. And the Debbie. I think realistically, the whole BMS is it's not just a class. Mm-hmm. It's changing your mindset. It's changing your mentality, and it's moving forward. And if you don't change your mindset, you won't survive in BMS. And it's not to say it's do or die, but if you don't change your mindset, if you don't change your mindset, the way we work doesn't work for everyone, and that's okay.
Yeah, it's interesting too. It's I don't know if you guys feel like this, but I used to be want to save everybody, and they would say no, and it was hard for me to look at them, and they physically were no, they couldn't see it as a possibility, and I'm like, no, you can. And I was like, they it's so weird to see that, when they say they can't, and it almost I knew that there wasn't any amounts of convincing that I could do that would get to sway them one way or the other. And I would feel so bad. And now I get to the point where I'm we're running a business and we have to be hey, it's not going to work out. And you kind of are I wish you could see it, but you have to let them go. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You can't save everybody.
Because it throws off the dynamic of everything else. I get what you're saying now. Within the salon, we can't have stylists, receptionists, anyone working for our team that's not there and willing to grind and have the mindset that we have and put in the work. And
slows you down.
Yeah, you can motivate a little, but you cannot be someone else's source of motivation. Mm-hmm. And that's when you're protecting the brand, you're protecting the salon, you're protecting whatever you're working for, because they're throwing off the dynamic of everything else. Everyone's on the same track, we're moving in the same direction, lightning speed ahead, but you have the one person with their energy off and they're not doing it, and you can't save them, and you saving them, you're not going to be able to, and then it's throwing off everyone else, and it kills everything so fast, and then you can't keep going in that same fast-paced momentum. So you got to be protective of that and kind of let them go.
Even when I hired my first couple assistants, they didn't want to be there, they didn't want to assist, and I was so tired of trying to convince them and sell the vision. And I ended up with my first couple assistants, I felt we left on kind of weird terms, but it's because I should have let him fly. I should have been hey, this isn't working out, or not let him fly, you know what I mean? Let him go sooner. I should have been this isn't for you, and it's weighing me down. And I literally feel I had 2 years of stagnant, because it's I saw my vision, but I couldn't even see the clear path. And so I allowed myself to stay inside of a story of, nope, this is the only person. I just have to convert this person's mindset and it'll be fine over time. And then now I learned the hard way, like anybody does in life. And I'm that slowed me down. And so now, Val was saying, when there's energy in the salon or anything like that, if it can affect the whole team, and it's best to just say, hey, and it can't, sometimes it's personal, but usually it's not. Usually it's hey, you're not, it's not going to work out. And then when you have that direct conversation with that person, they're you're right, I don't want to be here. And you're I'm not going to convince you to stay. And the other thing too is in our team, and I'm just going to touch base on this, but I feel I'm not one. I mean, we're building a vision and we're building a brand, but I hate entitlement. And so you're not going to come in and I'm just going to be hey, here's salary for $10,000 a month just because you're working for DKW. I'm not. I literally am show me you can bleed. Show me you can run as fast as I can. Show me. And when you show me that, I will give you the shirt off my back, but I will not do it until you show me. You have to show me that you can work. You have to show me that like you're good energy, you respect the team, you respect the business, you respect the vibe. And if you don't, you're letting yourself go. I'm not letting you go. You know what I mean? And so it's just
100%.
it's just an interesting to see that inside of my own salon and my own team. And then when it's I'm like, damn it, you get like when I see people go, I'm like, like I get mad, but I'm like, nope. Okay, best of luck. I love you. You're moving on to bigger and better things, and good for you, you know? So it is what it is.
And I feel like with being inside of DKW that a lot of people do expect, because we work with you, that we're handed everything. And people don't realize that's literally the complete opposite of what's happened. Even myself, when I got hired on as a trainer, they were like, we want you to move here. And I was like, okay, I will make it work. And I flew down a couple months beforehand, and I would assist inside the salon, and I would come for events and do that. And it was just coming down to do it. And then eventually, as I started moving, I tell everybody, because I see entitlement happen. Like, it's just fucking egos, man. Such big egos sometimes that I left a place where I was working by myself for myself. I literally think I took like 6 vacations one year because I was like, just because I can, because I'm going to do that just because no one can tell me, no, I'm leaving, thanks. Where I was making $20,000 a month literally by myself. I dropped all of that to come assist Danielle 2 days a week for hourly pay that I hadn't seen for like fucking like 10 years. But
I'm like, here, Ani, here's $5 an hour. Let's see what you can do.
How much can you bleed?
You live on that. But I mean, really, and I came down knowing that's just how it works. No one comes onto the team and they're handed anything. You have to work for it. And part of that is Danielle protecting the brand as well. That's what her and Garrett do, because if you're not willing to bleed and fucking, I keep saying, Garrett has said it too, I landed in California at a sprint and I have not stopped for almost 6 months now. That's just what it is.
I'm sure you're crazy. I was talking to Garrett last night. We went to dinner and somehow Ani came up and I was like, in a good way.
I'm like, oh God, I'm sweating.
This is, no. I was like, we were just like talking about BMS and stuff. And I was like, Ani is a machine. Like, I want to tell her to slow down, but I don't. Like, I was like, I've never seen somebody move at like the speed she does. Like, I'm like, it's just craziness. I'm like, we all have our different like strengths. I'm like, Ani is on speed, maybe. I don't know.
It's called cocaine. Just a joke.
Just a few bumps every. So no, I've never done drugs, so I can't even say. But
I don't know what cocaine. I don't know what this is. So
I was giving you like a compliment though. Like you say jump, and you're like like. When people see Ani, I'm like, don't expect to move at her pace at life in general. She's crazy, and most people don't move that fast. So whenever you share your story, I'm just like, just a little like letting everybody know how fast you move. Like so.
Oh, and when I make decisions, like it's done. Once I make up my mind, I'm in. I'm 100%. I'm fucking going forward, and there's literally no stopping me. But with that, even like the amount that you said that people come in and they have to bleed to be here. It's the same with Wake Up Warriors, the same with DKW and NBR and BMS. No one just shows up and we're so happy to have you here. Just come on it. Like, no, fuck that.
And some people too work at different paces.
Oh yeah.
Like everybody on the team.
Yeah.
We know those who I'm like, I like you. I'm just going to be patient and you go over here. And I can't. It's like you guys are like my children. And I can't expect the same thing out of all my kids. I love them all for different reasons. And so, but I think that's how it works in a business is everybody's going to operate a little bit different. But y'all have to have the same vision and y'all have to be, y'all have to be, y'all, that's my Utah coming out. Sorry about that. I can't say you all.
I don't even know if that's Utah.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's very Texas, but okay.
I lived in Gilbert for a minute, y'all. So anyway, but you have to move. You have to have the same vision and be willing to like move. Not even at the same pace. You just have to be on the.
You have to be moving forward. You
yes,
have to be taking.
There you go.
You have to
like,
take baby steps, leaps, whatever it is. But you have to constantly be going in a forward-moving movement. Like
not
you can't.
Back.
You can't be stagnant, and you can't be back, and you can't. We can't be dragging you along.
No.
You know.
We don't have anchors. We can't do that.
Everyone has to be willing to make sacrifices.
And that's what we talk about. Protecting from the inside is. If there's a team member that's not on board, if there's someone inside the network like Debbie or Elizabeth, the other one that we gave the boot, here's why really quick. We have, for BMS intensive events, we have 3 weeks of pre-training. The pre-training is mandatory, 100%. If you do not do it, you are dropped from the class. It's a $4,000 class. It's non-refundable. End of discussion. It's said a million times. Fucking 3 days in, she did no assignments. 2 weeks in, did no assignments. So I texted her and I said, you're out. Not only are you out of the BMS, you cannot come next week to your BMS intensive, and this is your last month of mastermind. I'm revoking it. Because we can't have someone who's not willing to put in the time and effort, because then everyone else who's hustling, everyone else who's working and grinding and fucking sacrificing to get where they want to be, they see the one asshole behind that's doing absolutely nothing.
And we've done that like in classes. That's why we've made the pre-training mandatory, is because then we have the live events and everyone practiced and was doing their thing, and then you got the girl over here who's never even threaded a needle, and we're like, we're wasting 45 minutes on you, and the rest of the class is getting, they're not getting their full value of it because the one person who didn't decide to do their work. So again, not being an asshole, but we're trying to make better results for everyone who really is investing in their future and in their education and all of that. So
well, and it's interesting, in hair schools they wouldn't allow you to do that. Like, if you don't turn in your work, if you don't complete your assignments, if you don't get your hours in, you don't graduate. You don't get a license. And it's so interesting. So it's like you kind of have to go into that approach, because I think hair extensions are not taught in hair schools. And so that's another thing. And they have such a bad rap. As our ads go out, people are like, I would never do those. I'm like, sit in my chair and then tell me you'll never do those. Because just because you're uneducated and ignorant doesn't mean that you have the experience that I do. And you can't judge a place. You can't judge an ad based off of you thinking you know it all when you've actually, you haven't sat in my chair and you don't do extensions. Like, don't say an ignorant comment. Do you know what I mean? Like, so anyways, that was a comment I read this morning. That's another reason why I'm like, I gotta stay on social media. But but it's just interesting to see, like, people's inputs on extensions in general. And so it's like we have to take that into consideration. Like, when we are doing our classes, we have to treat it like hair school, and like demand a certain amount of time and things like that, because otherwise it affects the brand. And again, we're protecting the brand, and we want, like, when a client is looking for MBR, in the past it was like a shit show because we didn't have this level of education. And I would send people to so-and-so who trained with me 4 years ago, and they'd be like, they're not even doing NBR. I don't even know what this weave thingy beaded whatever it is. And then I'm like, oh my God. And then it would reflect bad on me and my brand. I'm like, I can't do that. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And more people should, if you're going to certify somebody in your color technique or your balayage technique and your name's on it, it's so interesting how people are so into making a quick buck and really don't care. But I just think, because I'm trying to do things different, and I've had a lot of genuine success, obviously, wearing these in my own hair and on clients. So I genuinely care that people offering these, as well as the clients, have a good experience. We're making money, great, but I also want the experience and the to follow up with what we're preaching. You know what I mean? So, anywho.
Yeah, and so we've talked about having to protect from the outside, from people around the borders. We've had to talk about protecting from the inside, of people inside of our own networks, inside of our own salons. And I feel like there's really one more big topic of protection that we have to talk about, and it's protecting you from yourself. That's the toughie.
The real one.
Self-sabotage. Yes.
I did a good post on that.
Oh, did you really?
Well, it was really quick on my Instagram. I'm gonna read it because I feel like it goes along with what you were saying. Let me find it.
While you pull that up,
I got it.
Oh, just kidding. There you go.
Okay. Just kidding. Hold on. Wait, here it is.
False alarm.
Well, while she finds that. But when it comes to self-sabotage, that's something that I feel like everybody deals with, whether they know it or not. Especially Kenzie and I being inside of the Mastermind Network with BMS every single day. We talk to so many artists and students who they're like, well, this one thing happened, so I fucking gave up. I took a step back, so I quit. Self-sabotage is huge, and you don't even realize that you're doing it. So
I do a hair post on my blog, dkwstyling.com. If you want to see my blog, it's fun. On Mondays.
The Irish
I know. I actually post like the videos and the notes from the shows and things like that. So if you guys are listening and you maybe want to see what we look like live, you can go to the website and see what we look like. But anyways, on Mondays I post about hair formulas, anything that's like I feel like I need to share. You know what I mean? I really try to, like, I don't write a ton, but when I do, I try to like tune in and be like, what did people need to hear right now? You know what I mean? Or what's happening in my life that I feel like is something I should share. So this is just something I said on my Instagram, also DKW Styling, but then I did a blog post a little bit more touched base on it on Monday's post, which is my hair post. But I just said, reach for the sky. Who knew that a hairstylist could jump so high? And it's a cute picture of my daughter and I, and we're on the beach and we're jumping and her hands are up and it's sunset and it's a cute photo. But I said, who knew a hairdresser or hairstylist could jump so high? You don't have to know where you're going. You just have to have the courage to start. Life will lead you in the right direction if you stay committed and consistent. the only thing that stands in your way is you. And that's like so true, because it's so interesting when we get newbies and they're like, newbies, no, don't be offended, newbies, but like they can't even, their mind is like, no, I can't, no. And they're so stuck in their stories. They believe them so rooted and so deep in that they can't even fathom a different possibility. And I remember when I was there, and I remember when Garrett came to me, and this was like when I started my brand, and he said, you know, you're doing this extension method, but like it's kind of your own thing. I've seen you like evolve it over the years, and you just call it Beaded Rose, but I feel like you created a system, and I think you should start a brand and like educate and do it. And I was like, Garrett, I'm just a hairstylist. Like, I'm just a hairstylist. And I couldn't see past my own thoughts. And I'm like, no. And he's like, no, I think you need to start a brand. I'm like, what is a brand? I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I couldn't see it. And so when we have newbies that come on the scene and I get it, I'm like, and so I always encourage people, I'm like, you don't have to have it mapped out. You don't even have to know where you're going to go. You don't even have to know like specifically like what angle you're going to take. All I knew is I was a hairstylist. I knew that I had created something different. I knew that I had turned like my entire clientele into extensions, and I felt like I was making good money. And I was like, okay, I need to start a brand. And this was before social media took off. And so brands like I was like, brand like a L'Oreal. I'm for sure not L'Oreal. I don't know what you're talking about.
The Gap is different.
Yes, I was like, no, just a hairstylist. I didn't create a whole product line and all this color and whatever, you know. And so my mind couldn't even fathom it, and I kept telling myself like no, until I literally was in this place in my life where I'm like, I have nothing to lose. We have no money. I have 2 children. I have nothing to lose. Whatever story I'm telling myself I can't, like, fuck it. Because I have nothing to lose. And so what I try to tell people, I'm like, you don't have to have it mapped out. You don't have to have a story. You're going to get online. You're going to get on videos. You're going to get on somewhere. And you're going to feel like a dumbass. And the only person that's going to tell you you suck is you. Period. And if you choose to like listen to little voices like in your head, or somebody's like, well, that's weird. Guess what? It's still you. You choose what you get to do. You choose how you get to start. You just have to be willing to start. Get out of the noise, get out of all the thoughts and all the people in your head, and don't worry about what they think about you. And you just have to go. And for so many years when people would say, how do you do it? And I would just say, you put up the blinders, you get in tunnel vision, you stop worrying about the outside noise, and you go. And that still applies to the level in which we're at, because there's times where it's like most of it, like I said, is positive feedback, but then you get the one asshole on a random ad we're doing, and I'm like, stupid dick. Like, and you know what I mean? So it's like, even then I have to, like, a lot of times I just like delete, and I just focus, and because I know how much impact it's actually making, and where it's going. So I'm just like, again, putting on the blinders and kind of moving forward. But at the same time, since we're on the topic of protecting, because you can't be so like in a zone that you miss people copying your shit. Mm-hmm. Now you got a family, now you got a tribe, and so you have to protect what you've built.
Kenzie, do you feel like there's ever been a time where you've had to protect yourself from you?
I was just thinking about when Danielle was talking about that. I feel like I have to protect myself from myself on a daily basis.
I know, right?
It's like a regular, like, oh, I'm doing really good today. And then tomorrow I'm like, man, and I've got this list of things that I'm like, oh, you suck at this, you suck at this, you suck at this. And I'm like, man, if I was this rude to my friends, I probably wouldn't have any friends. Like, why am I so mean to myself? And I see it all the time in the network. Like, girls and guys in the network will be like, man, I'm just really struggling with this, and then they isolate themselves and they retreat. And I see myself doing it all the time. Like, I'm like, oh, nobody needs to hear about my baggage, and so I retreat and I don't talk about it. And that's the worst thing that you can do, is retreat and isolate yourself, because as soon as you do that, the self-sabotage kicks in and it goes on high gear. But when you talk about things and you let them out, that's when you can really process things, and it actually comes to light of like, oh wow, I didn't actually look as stupid as I thought I did talking with somebody else. But in your head, it sounds way worse than it actually is. So I was super proud of a girl in the network this week, because she aired out what was going on in her life, and I was so proud of her, because that's something that most people are too afraid to even bring up. We're so afraid to not look perfect that we won't even share any of our flaws, when in all reality our flaws are what makes people love us more. And so I was thinking about when Danielle was talking about you're in your own way, and the very first time I realized that I was in my own way was the first time I took a BMS class. And Garrett asked us, he's like, what are you guys going to do? Go through this big old list of like, what are you going to do to keep moving forward? And then one of the questions that was on there was, who is going to be your biggest obstacle? And I remember writing in my journal, I'm my biggest obstacle. And that was the first time in my life that I ever recognized and realized that I'm actually the problem. Because for years and years, I was living in victim mode of, oh, well, I work in a commissioned salon. My boss won't let me do this or that. And I'm held hostage because it's a commissioned salon. When in all reality, like, I'm in a commissioned salon again, and I don't have any of those things holding me back. And so I realized at that point in time that as soon as I got out of my own way, that's when I started moving forward in my career. And I think it's the first time that you take that first leap that all of a sudden it doesn't mean it's easy, but it gets easier every single time you make the decision. Like Danielle has to commit and say yes all the time, but it doesn't mean it's any easier for her than it is for someone who's just starting out in their career. It's still hard, but you get better at it and you get more self-confidence, and you have to protect yourself from those mental voices that are like, oh, you're such a piece of shit, you're not good at this, you're not good at that, like all the time.
You're so brutal. Damn.
I know. I'm just like shaking my head at everything. I'm like, oh my God, you too? I do that too. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's just funny because it's like I'll do a color and I'll be like, man, like I could have done this better, and I could have done this better, and I could have done this better. And then I have someone come up to me and they're like, oh, that was so good. And I'm like, really? I hated it. And it's funny because you would never say that to your friends. You would never say that to your friends.
You're so mean to yourself, though.
But you're so mean to yourself. And I think there's a difference between like constructive criticism towards yourself. Like, I can always be in more shape. I can always do this better. But there's a big difference between that and self-sabotage, which I catch myself in all the time. So it's just finding a system, and I'm sure we'll hit on this in a little bit, but finding a system to kind of kick yourself out of the self-sabotage, because for me it's like a daily cleanse. So
Same.
Well, and I think what's important of what you said is how there will always be hard decisions. You always have to do something else. There's always another step, another place to go, somewhere else to work towards. But I think what makes it easier, not in the sense of like, oh, who gives a shit, I'll just do whatever, but it's the harder decisions you make, the more you trust yourself, the more you're like, you know what, this was the fucking worst, but I went through that, I made that, and that's how I feel, maybe why I trust myself so much. Not saying I don't self-sabotage. Lord knows I did a stack this morning and I was like,
on yourself?
Oh, yes, I did. So basically the stack is something that we just stole from Wake Up Warrior, and it's just a list of questions that helps you walk through a problem and feelings.
We didn't steal it.
yeah, that's what I was just gonna say.
This is protection, Ani. We were allowed to use it.
Garrett gave it to us.
We are incorporating the Warrior's Way into BMS.
There we go.
So
There we go.
we didn't steal shit. So with that,
was gifted from Garrett.
It's basically just a series of questions to help you go through a feeling that you're having or something that happened, something that just triggered you. Why was my own trigger this morning? That'll be a fun one we can talk about later. But even with that, I look back and I'm like, okay, the decision to go to my first like group class of NBR in March and then come back 2 months later in May for BMS, and then to go from that BMS 6 months later to another BMS, and then for another like barely year after that to move out here, it was decision after decision. And in between that, it was dropping all my men's and kids clients, dropping all my women, doing only NBR, upping my prices 3 separate times. Like there was so much that happened in that year and a half. Not that those decisions were easy, that I'm like, nothing matters, this is great. But it was like, okay, I already took all these hard steps. I already did all of these things, and look at how good it turned out. If my gut was saying go, I went. And maybe that's why when I run, like I fucking run and I don't stop, because my gut is always saying
slow down. Yeah.
No.
I think too, it's like, I think that's probably why you move so fast. You don't have even time to think. When I have too much time in the day, that's when I'm like, my mind,
The
like
self-sabotage kicks in,
and so I think it's important, and I even tell Garrett, I'm like, you have to find balance in your life, but it's important to like stay busy, I think. And I don't know if you ladies feel the same way.
I totally agree.
If I have too much time off on a weekend, I literally am like, okay, what can I be productive with? Do you know what I mean? Or let's go have some quality time with the family. Let's go do something. Let's get out of the house. Let's do this, because that's when you get inside your head. It's like when you don't have purpose and you have too much free time, then it's like, and everybody does it. It's not just like everybody does it. And the other thing that's scary about that is like we all have our vice or like things when you don't have a lot going on. Like I like to shop, right? So I have to like keep that in check. Or
You like to shop?
It's weird.
What?
Or like there's a lot of like I used to be a little bit of a foodie. Like I love treats, and then I'm like, oh, let's make cookies. Like, and then it's like, you know, you have to like always keep yourself in check, because if I'm constantly eating cookies all day, then I'm gonna self-sabotage, and I'm gonna feel crappy about myself, and then the guilt sets in, and then you like get in this weird funk.
Cycle.
And so if you're trying to avoid like, if you feel like you're that person and you're listening to this show and you're like, yeah, I do self-sabotage, I would just encourage you, the one thing that's helped for me is to just find purpose in your day. And like Ani touched base on, which I thought was cool, is like, she's like, it's a daily thing. It's not, these thoughts come up. It's totally normal for that little stupid voice. Who is it? It's like good angel, bad angel, like on your shoulder. Like that's how I see it.
It's light me, dark me.
Totally. And I'm like, you fucking asshole, shut up, you know? And it sounds funny, but like literally there's days where I feel like I'm screaming at myself. I'm like, shut up. And then I'm like, oh, just go for a jog, Danielle, or find some purpose in your day, because like you're not in a happy space right now. So if that's somewhere where you find yourself on a daily basis, you need to like create balance in your life, you know, or like maybe it's like, okay, I could go work out now, or okay, for me, like if I have a time frame off and I'm getting in my head, I'll put music on, I'll clean out the pantry. And I know that sounds stupid, but it keeps me feeling like I have purpose and not self-sabotaging. And it's nice to like take away, there's a lot of people who are like workaholics, you know what I mean? Ani. So I would even like say, like, if you find, and I can say that because Garrett's a workaholic too, and I'm very much, I don't work. If I'm a workaholic, I will crash. Like everybody has their formula, and for me that doesn't work. I have to have a little bit more balance. And so it's hard, like Ani was saying, like you don't want to slow down, you don't want to like lose that momentum, but you got to balance it and make sure you're taking time for yourself too. And if that means like cleaning out your pantry to music and that makes you feel good, but it's kind of like downtime, I don't know. That's just kind of what I'm feeling like inspired to share, because we all get inside of our heads, and you just have to find something like a formula that works for you so that you can like stay positive and stay on the right course and where you're supposed to go.
Well, and I know for myself, I've recently started, I wake up every morning. I'm trying to either debate doing Pilates in the morning or at night. I don't know which one works, neither are working right now very well for me, but I still get up, I get ready for the day, I go get my green drink, I do the stack now every single day, so that's an hour and a half long process every morning. Oh my God. Oh my God. But I do that, and then I head straight to headquarters, and I'm there all day long. At some point, I go get food. I meditate throughout the day. Like, there are things that now I know I have to hit every single day. And even with that, that's what my stack was about this morning, was balance. That I'm completely out of fucking whack, which it's fine. I got a solution. Don't worry.
Weird that I brought up balance, and that was your stack this morning, Ani. It's like I knew.
You felt me.
Intuition is never wrong.
And then one of the warriors called me, and his first question was, "How are you doing?" And I'm like, "Why'd you read my stack?" I'm like, "Do you know? Are you reading?" He's like, "No, just asking." I'm like, "Did Garrett read my stack?" Why do you ask? So
you were feeling the guilt. See, you were feeling the guilt, and the guilt is the devil, Ani.
It's the dark me. She's gone now. Don't worry.
Tell her to shut up.
But even then, and I feel like even some things as simple as like going for a walk on the beach and looking back and taking like appreciation of how far I've come and what I've accomplished, even in just this short. Danielle, do you know I've only been here for 5 months? 5 months is how long I've lived here. And
I'm gonna need you to slow down on the speed. And I'm just kidding.
And I mean, so much has happened and so much has changed in even just 5 months.
I know.
I have to look back and just appreciate that. So Val, you're probably one of the other like busiest people I know. Like you,
Val, where's your balance? I can feel Val's energy from across the table right now. I'm like, Val.
It's dark Val.
White Val is gone. It's dark Val today. But really, I feel like you and I, we're the same. We're feet up, 5 a.m. We're on the phone by 5:30. We're fucking working from 5 o'clock in the morning until when we crash at night, or you put your phone down and then it dies overnight, and then I'm trying to call you at 5:30 and you're not answering.
I'm like, hold on, I gotta plug it in. I forgot to plug it in last night.
You're like, it's at 1%. I'm like, it's 5:30.
I was like,
30 minutes.
I was texting you guys at 7. I was like, oh, is it too early? And I was like, well, no, what am I talking about?
It's them.
You're talking to?
Yeah.
We don't sleep. But for you, balance and self-sabotage, because I know you and I've heard you say things throughout the years where I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
So do you feel like self-sabotage is something that you've had to deal with? Like,
it's my specialty.
Share how you deal with it.
I'm still working on it. Like when we were talking about it earlier today, and I was like, oh, I don't know. I'll give you advice when I fucking figure out how to like stop self-sabotaging, because I've not figured it out.
Yeah.
I'm just that person that like I'll be done with like my clients for the day, and I'm like, oh, this is like, every time I'm looking back at the pictures, I'm like, I can't post this. Oh, I should have done this differently. Like I'm always like in my head about that. Or if it's something on like education, like it doesn't matter what it's about. I'm always like so critical of myself, and And I'm really, really hard on myself. And I'm always surprised when like someone's like, oh my God, I loved what you said on the podcast. And I'm always like telling myself like, oh, well, Ani's so fiery and passionate. Like I don't come across like I even care, you know, but there's just like a difference. But that's me getting in my own head. Or like when you would always be like, oh my God, everyone wants to know your color formulation. Everyone loves how you color. And I'm always like, no, they don't want to know anything like that I'm doing. And I just, that's my own story and my own, like, I'm like, no, I don't want to talk. No one wants to hear what I have to say, you know? But that's just me always slowing myself down. But Danielle's always, and Garrett have always like told me, like, we don't have to know the whole like game plan, the whole, just one step further each day. And I am like a super private, a super shy, quiet person. And I don't like to be in the spotlight, but I've done things to like put myself out there and continue to grow. And like right now I feel like I have this like crazy momentum where like, it's just amazing when like apps are coming in, they're actually like asking for you, or I have like people constantly like asking on Instagram, and just I have this momentum going that's like, okay, you got to stop self-sabotaging because you're building up this momentum. Don't slow yourself down. You've put in so much hard work, like keep going with it. But it is hard for me because that's just like my natural thing. Like I get in my head and I'm like so mean to myself, but I feel like for everyone else I'm always like positive Polly and like, oh my God, this is so good and you're doing this, you know. But when it comes to me, I'm like dark Val and like
So mean
fucking
to
the
yourself.
ice pick comes out. I'm like, oh my God.
But it can be a good thing too. Like I mean, I will share this with you guys. Maybe you can appreciate it. And I think it goes for a lot of women. Like you feel like you're kind of like the negative Nancy, and you point out like the flaws. And I used to always think like, God, what the fuck's wrong with me? Like, why am I always like pointing out the flaws? And so now I just have to reword it with people I care and love about. I'm like, hey, what if we do it this way? But I don't think that seeing the flaw, or even in my own stuff, do you know what I mean? I'm like, why can't this be better or whatever? But I don't think that that's a curse. And I would definitely challenge those. And I'm sure women all over have that critical eye is what Garrett calls it. But I don't think of it as a curse. Think of it as a blessing. Like that you can spot little things and flip it. When you hear that voice come into your head that's like, no, like, and you're so bugged, just take it and be like, okay, well, next time I need it, I want to do this piece and this piece different, and it's fine, you know. And you don't have to like post that. That's part of learning and growing, and that's part of like experience and becoming better. When I looked at my first work too, I mean, you guys like I feel like if you were to see some of my work from like when I first started to now, it's like night and day different. You know what I mean? And so it's like it's like important to like look at that and critique it, but then flip it into a positive. Don't get in your head, flip it into a positive in order to grow and learn and become a better person. So whenever you
have to keep moving with it. Like take a minute and like, you know, take it constructively and you can change and tweak things, but don't let it like stop. And that's where I feel like I need to like find the balance is I can't like retreat so far that then I'm like stopping and not going any further. If like something happens with a client or a coworker or anything, you can't just like stop and hide in that place and stop growing. You have to be like, okay, what can I learn from this? How can I do it better? And then process it and move forward.
I got to share this really, really quick because it happens to a specific stylist in our salon, and I know you guys know who I'm talking about. And we love her. I love her so much, and I am so patient.
Oh, we all do.
And we love, like, she's like my favorite person. But I see her get in her head in the middle of a client. If something goes slightly south, just a smidge, it's like game over. And but she will figure it out. I've just learned. I'm like, you throw her in it. Nobody can learn and grow if you don't throw yourself in it. So I keep throwing her in it. I'm like, no, you got this. No, you got this. And I watch her get better and better and better and better and better. But I have to just throw her in the mix, and we all do that. We have to be willing to just throw ourselves out, and there's no like fear of failure. You just jump, and it's not like you're gonna experience these emotions, and you're gonna be like halfway through a client and be like, fuck, oh my God. But you can't let the client feel that emotions. There's one thing they taught me in hair school, and I will never forget it. And I'm sure, I don't know if your guys' hair school taught this to you, but they're like, you're a duck. You're calm, you're collective, and under the water, your feet are going like this. And I was like, and I'm like, you have to do that, because when you're a hairstylist, if the client senses at any time that like you're stressed about timing, or fuck, you put in the wrong formula, or it's over processed, or oh my God, it's under processed, or whatever it is, your appointment is to the shithole now.
Yep.
It is to the shithole. And so it's like, and I see some people are a really good poker face. Val, best poker face I've ever seen.
Thank you.
Yes. And so, but I'm just like trying to say, like, that's what's crazy about hair is we self-sabotage in the middle of a client, and the client can see it, and that affects their experience, and they won't come back probably, you know? And then you're like, oh my God, if you just, lots of times, and this is how I learn and grow, and I know we're coming to a close on the show, Ani, but there's a lot of times too where I would be like, oh my God, I'd be so scared to tell the client, like, I don't like this piece, or I screwed up, or I don't like this. And now I go into when I'm doing a client's hair, and this has nothing to do with protection, but I just wanted to spat it out there.
You're protecting your work.
Yes, there, I like
Go
it.
for it.
I
I
like
got
it.
you.
Okay, so like, now I'm like, I always say, work until the job's done. So if you open that highlight and it's, oh my God, or it's over processed, or their hair was more porous, you don't panic. You are the professional, and you work until the job is done. So if you need to do a quick bleach wash in the shampoo bowl, and you express that to your clients, you're like, this may have 3 different color sessions to your color.
Yep.
You know, and that's how it is. And even in the end, we'll get done, and I'm like, I don't like your base. It needs to be darker. Are you cool to stay here another 30 minutes? And I'll work people in, and I make sure everybody's taken care of, and I'm not stressed about timing, because I go around and I make sure everybody's needs are validated. I'm like, how are you doing? I have to finish her color, and I would do the exact same for you, because I don't like that base. It's ugly. You see her base? Bad. Her base is bad. And I'm like, I love you. I hate your base. It's not your fault. It's my fault. And I'm constantly like controlling the frame and the energy in which we work at, because I'm protecting my salon.
I like it.
Well, and can I
So-
add to that?
So with that, I know, I'm sorry,
We're
coming
done?
we're actually over our hour, but with that, what I want you guys to do is really go through and consider and look at your own life and look at yourself and what you're doing. Where in your life are you self-sabotaging? Is it in a relationship? Is it with your friends? Is it with family? Is it inside of your business, your coworkers? And what can you do about it? Whether it be journaling or meditating or just writing all of it out. Figure out where in your life you're doing it and what you can do to move forward. Because otherwise, you lose the protection. Once you do that, like Val said earlier, you are starting from scratch all over again. So thank you for being with us, and we'll see you guys next week.